everyone, and welcome to today's Tuesday Talk. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Ben Pulowski. I'm part of Geotab's Learning Center, and today we are going to do a presentation for you on the RMA process. Also some new changes and additions that we're going to get to in a little bit. So let's go ahead and get started here. I am joined today by Heather Carlton, who is our Associate Vice President of Reseller Sales. Heather, thank you so much for joining us on Tuesday Talk, and take it away.
Excellent. Thanks, Ben. And thanks, everybody, for joining. What I'll do is I'll do a walkthrough of the RMA process, which may be somewhat repetitive for you guys, but honestly, it's you can never hear these things too much. But I will be calling out the updated and new things within the RMA process. I think you'll find over the course of the next, I would say, few months, maybe even longer, you'll find there will be some changes to MyAdmin. We are certainly working very hard at updating it and making it even easier to work with. I always loved MyAdmin personally. I always thought it was a great tool for resellers to keep anything Geotab related really managed, but it's been some time since we've had any updates. So we're working on that now. And there's been a few things to the RMA process, which we're going to call out today. But keep your eyes open for other Tuesday Talks coming up in the next few months in regards to other updates in regards to MyAdmin as well. Okay? I'm going to use a bit of a different format here for this particular presentation. Normally, we typically do like a PowerPoint kind of presentation, but I'm actually going to walk you through a document that is very easily accessible for you guys. And rather than recreate that, because I would literally take that content and put it into a presentation, and rather than do that, I'm actually going to follow the content of the document itself that you can reference at your fingertips anytime you'd like. It's a fantastic document to reference in regards to MyAdmin and anything to do with how-tos or whys in regards to MyAdmin. So I really want to, focus, put that out there that what I'm walking you through is at your fingertips at any point in time. So if you happen to forget what we're talking about today, you can always go back and reference this document to get the answers that you need. That document is found right in MyAdmin. As you can see, I'm in the MyAdmin portal, and it's this question mark right here. When I click on this question mark, you're going to see that it's going to bounce me out to the MyAdmin user policy and procedures document. In this document, I love it. I use it all the time. I reference it. I send links to it to some of you folks from time to time. It's a great resource for sure. Now, in this case, because this document is rather lengthy, as are a lot of user documents, Control F is your best friend. So I'm going to Control F, and I'm going to simply enter in RMA policy here, and it's going to take me to, as you can see, the RMA policy and process here. But also, if I were just to go to the second area where it says RMA policy and process, if you happen to scroll through the table of contents here on the left-hand side, I can click on any one of these sections, and it'll take me to that section front and center here in the content side of things. So I simply click on it, and it takes me right to the section. So you can also scroll through this and click on any section that you want to read up on, click on it, and it'll put it front and center in the area that you want to read. So in this case, of course, we're looking at the RMA policy and process section. And I'm going to do this in sort of twofold. I'm actually going to walk through parts of this, and believe me, I'm not going to read it because I know you guys can do that on your own. I'm just going to call out some important parts of it. And then for part of this, I'm going to pop back into MyAdmin and actually walk you through some of the RMA section within MyAdmin itself. So a bit of a live demo as well. Okay. So you guys, I'm sure, are well aware of our RMA policy and process. Typically, return merchandise authorization is what it stands for. And it is basically to get hardware, whether it be devices or IOX cables or engine harnesses, back to us. We will not, Geotab will not accept anything back. We can't physically accept anything back into our buildings without an RMA number. So for whatever reason, we will need an RMA number attached to anything that comes back to us. If we do receive anything without an RMA number, I think you guys know this, it will be sent back out to the reseller that owned that particular hardware. The only real kind of case that where this may happen kind of by accident is that if a end fleet if an end user actually uninstalls the device and takes it upon themselves to ship the device back to us, that may be the only way. And honestly, it doesn't happen. It hardly ever happens. So that may be the only case that I can really see where it would happen, that a device would get shipped back to us, or hardware would get shipped back to us without an RMA number. And it's honestly innocent. But we will ship it back to the reseller to go through the proper RMA process. So let's start by talking about the RMA policy. So in regards to what I want to kind of start off with here is a little bit, is not necessarily new. It's new within the last couple of years. I think it was new to us in the last update that we did. In that, of course, resellers can, if they so choose, they can keep shelf stock if they'd rather do that, rather than our legacy way of getting the RMA approved, placing the order for the RMA for the new return device, and getting that out, and then doing the uninstall and install. So to lower that downtime of the dysfunctional device that may be out there, you can keep shelf stock, and after troubleshooting is completed, you can simply go ahead and use your shelf stock to replace devices that may be out there in the field. And that lowers the downtime of a device not communicating. So the only thing I wanted to point out to you to consider if you are going to keep shelf stock, and you don't have to, it just is possible now, is that if you do keep shelf stock, please remember to use the first in, first out inventory management type of system. The reason being is that if you do have devices sitting on the shelf for 4 months, 6 months, 8 months, that type of thing, you could have a couple of firmware updates sitting there waiting to happen. And the more firmware updates on there, the longer it's going to take, and that can hinder the install of that device. So if you go to install and it seems to be taking forever to latch, then perhaps there's a couple of firmware updates sitting there waiting to be kind of pushed through, or waiting to be pushed through for the device to be totally up and running and communicating. So we recommend that if you are going to keep shelf stock, that you don't really have it on the shelf for longer than 3 or 4 months, because we typically do firmware updates on a quarterly basis, or we try to do firmware updates on a quarterly basis. So really no longer than about a 3 or 4 month time frame on the shelf is sort of recommended. And then the first in, first out management system as well should be considered. Okay. Now let's talk about qualifying for a credit. That's really kind of where some new things are coming into play here. You guys remember that you had 60 days to get a device back to us to get your credit, okay? Well, we've changed that to 90 days. So we've extended that for you guys, for the resellers, you now have 90 days to get those devices back to us to get your credit, which gives you guys a little more leeway out there, which is wonderful. I think that's great. Now, a couple things to consider is if a dysfunctional device that's being returned to us is not received within 90 days, by that 90 days, the RMA will expire. You will receive notification that it's expired, so you will be notified of it. And if it is a dysfunctional warranty type of claim, then you can go back in, request another RMA, and go through that process again. Hopefully you can just avoid that by trying to get those devices back to us within 90 days. Again, I don't think that's too much of a problem. I think everybody was pretty successful in the 60 days. We've just given you a little bit of leeway there. Okay. The other thing to consider with RMAs is latest Geotab will accept warranty returns is 90 days after the end of warranty. So if you are on base, Regulatory Planner Pro, you guys know that you have a year warranty from the date of install. So you've got to consider that when RMAing the device and getting it back to us for credit. So you've got the latest we will accept it is 90 days after the warranty period ends. So if it's over and above that, you might be a bit out of luck, okay? You can keep in mind that you can always check your warranty of your device in My Admin and other sections of My Admin. For sure, we list the warranty time there. The other thing to remember is that in Pro Plus, you get a lifetime warranty, which makes things really easy and makes things really lovely to work with, okay? So one last thing to qualify for a credit that I wanted to point out is that, and this isn't anything new, we do always inspect the devices upon return. When we receive them, we do inspect them. We do hold the right to maybe decline a credit if the device appears to be tampered with or messed with from external sources. So we will test it, we will inspect it, and then approve the credit. I'm not sure we have yet to turn a credit down yet, but that is just something that we need to make you guys aware of and make it very clear that that's going to occur. And this will be communicated to you, obviously, very clearly to the reseller to say, this is what we suspected with these particular devices. We need to talk about this because we're considering not providing credit. So that discussion will absolutely happen. Okay, let's talk about RMAs and the types of RMAs that you can now do. This to me is actually super exciting because we've added a few wonderful pieces here. So the warranty return, the type of RMA, is our standard dysfunctional device RMA. So nothing really too new here. This is where you guys have a device out there in the field that doesn't work for whatever reason. Either you've done your troubleshooting and you've set up a ticket with our support engineering to Tier 3 support engineering to further troubleshoot because you can't find the answers, or our support services has done the troubleshooting in partnership with you and will up it to Tier 3 support for further investigation if you can't find a simple answer to it. I stress the troubleshooting part of it because there is an element of troubleshooting in the field that can be done very easily to solve problems. Devices don't necessarily always have to come back to us. You guys know that. If we can fix something over the air, we're absolutely going to do that, and that way we avoid any kind of needing to touch the vehicle, if you will. So troubleshooting is an imperative part of this warranty returns side of things. As you guys know, tickets do need to be created. We absolutely have to have discussions with engineering, with support services and engineering, and then typically it is the support engineering services that says, yeah, we got to return this device. We've got to RMA it, okay? And then ensues the RMA process, which I'll walk through in a moment. Then this is somewhat new here. I'm just going to scroll up here. The sales return. Sales returns is a fantastic addition to our RMA process now, in that it's just simply if you happen to buy too many of any of our hardware, whether it be devices or IOX cables or harnesses, or if the customer backpedals and turns out they don't need this many, then you have the ability to return those to us. There is a handful of caveats with this that I think will make total sense to you, though. The devices must be unused, or I should say the hardware. The hardware must be unused. It must be in the original packaging. The packaging can't be opened or anything. It does have to be an unused, unopened product. And also, it does, the sales return warranty request does need to happen within 30 days of purchase of the product. So those are a few caveats to consider when a sales return is in question. But it's great that we have a process for it, a nice, simple, streamlined process for sales returns now. Another one final caveat is all sales returns down here are subject to a 20% restocking fee. Again, something to consider. There's a restocking fee for us to take that back and put it into stock. Obviously, the first prize is if you purchased it and this particular customer doesn't need it, you may very well need it for another customer and you could have it as shelf stock for a period of time. Okay, so that's certainly something that's doable. But the sales return process is certainly a great addition to our RMA process here, and I'll walk you through that as well in a second in the live demo section. Now we also have defined what's called an investigate return. This isn't really anything new, it's just that we are defining it formally. Okay, and this is where you're working with engineering, there is tickets created, and it's kind of maybe a serious conversation about the device itself, whether it be collision reconstruction needs to happen or needs to happen off of the device, and perhaps it didn't download data in time at the point of the accident, God forbid. We can get at the device, you can bring it back to us, we may be able to get that collision data off of it. Anyway, so that's worth certainly setting up a ticket and discussing this with engineering, support engineering, and we may require the device to come back to us. Or if there's any engine interference investigations. There may be times when we want the devices to come back to us to test them in our facilities, probably in the exact same vehicles that we may rent or have as well. So those are sort of the examples of where an investigative return might come into play. But typically the reseller is very much back and forth with our support engineering team on these, and the support engineering team will definitely suggest this. And then you can go into my admin and place the RMA return for this particular reason, and I'll show you that in a second as well. It's very, very simple. And repair returns is the last type of warranty. Again, it's not really a new return, but it's just being formalized here. We've always had this in place. Now, a repair return, the business case that usually applies to this is if you've happened to terminate a device. You still either have it in stock or perhaps it's still in the vehicle with the fleet, but for whatever reason it was terminated. Now, if you have terminated something by accident, you do have about 5 or 6 days, like about a week, I'd say, to reach out to us, and we can perhaps reactivate it over the air. But after about a week's time period after termination, usually the phone number kind of goes back to the cellular carrier, and we have no control over it anymore. So after that week's period of termination, and if you do want to go back in and you do want to reuse that device or resell that device, or you want to activate it and get it up and running to sell it or use it again, you can do that. And it's done by a repair return. You go in, you place your RMA for a repair return, you send the device back to us, we replace the SIM, and then we send it back to you. You cannot replace a SIM out in the field. You cannot open the device out in the field. It voids all warranties. So if you do want that SIM replaced, you can send that device back to us. We will replace the SIM and we will get it back to you. There is an additional charge to this. And that is, I believe, I will want to verify that, but I believe that is a $25 US charge for a SIM replacement type of repair return. So that is the fourth type of return that we have. Now, what the beauty of this is it's not just all here for us to read. It actually is available in the RMA section of my admin, which I will walk you through in just a second here. RMA Process Overview, I think I had this in my last, in our last update in terms of RMA, so this really isn't anything new, but it's a great, easy flow to follow. You suspect the device is faulty, you do your troubleshooting, you can't answer the questions, you open a support ticket and work with engineering, they suggest an RMA, you request your RMA, you get the RMA approved, the number is issued. You then go ahead and swap the faulty device, which you don't necessarily have to do at this stage. If you do keep shelf stock, you can swap the device at this point when the RMA has been suggested by our engineering team. You return the faulty device to us, we receive it, and we apply credit to your account for that particular device as long as everything is in warranty. Okay? So pretty easy flow, pretty simple process really. Now let's go to requesting an RMA. Now, rather than walk you through this document for requesting an RMA, but it is a great resource to have, I'm actually going to pop back into my admin at this point and walk you through a live demo. So back I go to my admin. So I'm going to drop down the hamburger here, which opens up our menu bar for my admin, and I'm obviously going to go to the RMA section and drop that down. So first of all, I'm going to walk you through the different RMA requests here. So how do you actually make an RMA request? And I know you guys know this, but there's a few little things that have been added to this that make, in my opinion, make your lives much easier. So the first thing I'd like to point out here is the RMA Request Type. Based on what we just walked through, you now have the ability to choose one of the 4 RMA types. Is it an investigative one? Is it a repair return for a new SIM replacement? Is it a sales return, or is it a warranty return? And warranty is our standard typical dysfunctional device return. Now I'm going to leave it on warranty return, but I'm actually going to quickly walk you through all 4 just so you guys can get a look and feel for it, okay? So the warranty return, again, this is our standard sort of legacy dysfunctional device return. As you can see, it is mandatory to have a ticket number, which of course is logical. You guys would be working with our engineering support team already to discuss why it's not communicating. So you'd have a ticket number for reference for sure. That is mandatory because that's where all the details are going to be in regards to this particular issue. The reseller reference, which is in all 4 options, is simply a reference for you guys. If there's something that you want to make note of that helps you keep track of these things, put it in this reseller reference. That's for your information. And then request comments, simply a section to summarize what the issue is. If you see fit, you could just put your comments in there in regards to the particular RMA in question. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually load in example, I'm just going to load in a random ticket number here. And these aren't mandatory, so I'm going to leave those empty, and I know you get that. Then what I'm going to do is then what you have to do, as you can see, this section right here is blank because that's going to be for when we add our products, it's going to list the products for us. So I'm going to click on Add Products. Now this is where we go ahead and add our product. Now here, again, you have the ability to choose product type. Is it a device? Is it a harness? Is it an IOX? Is it other? Now when I keep it on device, you'll notice obviously a serial number, at least one, is mandatory, and the quantity. Now, keep in mind, if you have multiple serial numbers, you can click on bulk entry form and copy and paste the serial numbers up to 100, line by line, here in the bulk section and click OK. And if you did that, they would all populate in this blank section here for us. Okay? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to enter actually my serial number that's in my vehicle. Just let me get this in here. To D. Okay, so the other thing that is mandatory here is product SKU. Now you don't necessarily need to know exactly what this is. You can simply click in the blank section and it looks it up for you. So I just clicked in this blank section here and it looked up what product is this particular device. And as you can see, it is a Go9 LTE TELUS device, which it absolutely is. Okay, and then what I can do is I'm just going to simply click Add. Now, when you have your device or devices or hardware listed here, you do have to choose or enter in an RMA reason. So this is where you can just simply enter in a very summarized reason for what is wrong with the particular device, knowing that the ticket number will go into greater detail. If you have multiple devices or pieces of hardware listed here and the same reason applies to each one of them, you can simply click on this fun little icon here and it'll literally populate that same reason into all of those pieces of hardware that are listed. So nice and easy. So you don't have to do anything too many things one at a time. Okay? And then once this is all filled out, I simply submit. It gets approved on our end. To which you receive an email notification, say your RMA has been submitted. Then we send you a second email notification with the RMA number. And that RMA number is very important. That's what you're going to use. You're going to, track the RMA with that. If you want to place another order, which I'll talk about in a second, for a replacement device, you're going to use that RMA number. So this RMA number is certainly an important number in regards to returning these particular devices. And as I said, we can't accept anything back into our buildings without this RMA number. And we'll talk a little bit further about that in a second. So I am not going to submit this, but I would submit it normally. I'm simply going to cancel it because I don't want to bulk up our staff admin account with all of these random RMAs. So I'm going to click cancel because that is literally the walkthrough of our typical warranty type of return. Okay, so I'm going to cancel that. Now I'm going to come back up here and I'm going to click on new RMA request again because now I'd like to show you guys what it looks like to place an RMA request, for example, a sales return. So these devices were received a few days ago. I know I don't need them. As you can see, the related ticket number no longer has an asterisk because logically, you won't have a ticket. You don't need to talk to support about returning sales type of stuff, product that you perhaps ordered too much of or are not needed. Okay, you don't need to talk to support about that. You can just go in right away and enter in an RMA request. The quicker you do it, obviously, the better because you have 30 days from the point of purchase. So ticket number is not necessary. Again, reseller reference is for your use. Comments simply could be ordered too many, whatever the reason is, customer no longer needs. Whatever the typical reason is, just put a quick little note in the comment section. Then also, of course, you have to add the products. So when I go to add the products, click on it. Again, you have the ability to choose device, harness, IOX, or other. So when I choose device, again, you do need the serial number, you need the quantity, and when you click on it, the product code should just naturally populate. Again, if you have multiple devices, you can do a bulk entry form, okay, which in this case, often there are multiple devices. Now let's say it's a handful of harnesses. It's a bunch of harnesses. So when I click harnesses that I need to return, you can see that that all we need to do is provide a quantity and the product SKU. Is it the T harness, OBD T harness? Is it an IOX? Let's say it's an IOX, and let's say it's 10, and let's say it's the IOX, and as you can see, it populates an easy access list here for you. So when I say, oops, NFC reader, there we go, populates it for me. You do not have the ability or the need to use the bulk entry form when it's harnesses or IOXs, because you simply enter in the type of harness or IOX that it is, the product code, and the amount, and you add. Okay? Now when I click add here, now with a sales return, whether it's a harness, IOX, or actual Go device, you do have a drop down to choose from for the reason here. So if it's the wrong product, or if it's the unused stock, or if it's receipt did not match order, duplicate order, whatever the reason is, you can choose it and it'll populate. And again, you have this fun little button here that copies this particular reason down through all of them if that's applicable. So, and then you click submit, and again, same process happens. In this case, the RMA is approved automatically because we don't have support involvement. There was no ticket, there's no nothing. It's automatically, you will receive an RMA number. Okay, so it's nice and simple in terms of the sales return process. Okay, I'm just going to cancel that again. And I'm going to click on new RMA request again, because I just want to quickly walk you through the last two, and they're very simple to work with, and they're very similar, in fact, as well. So when I drop this down, the two that we haven't walked through are, of course, investigate. So I'm going to click on investigate. Yes, you need a ticket number, okay, which makes sense, because if this is engine interference or you've been talking to support already. So a ticket is mandatory, and logically you will have one. So it's not out of the question to ask for that. My reference is again for you guys. You guys can put a comment in there as normal, and then you add products. And adding the products, it's the exact same way as the other two options. So I don't necessarily need to walk you through that, I don't think. The last one that we chose is repair, and it's slightly different here. Yes, you do need a valid ticket number, because you would have been talking to probably support in regards to sending it back to get it repaired, or get the SIM get a new SIM entered into it, whatever the case may be. We do have again my reference for the reseller section. Now here it is mandatory, as you can see, to enter in a shipping address, because you're not going to get a credit for this, right? This is something that you're returning the device to us, we're fixing it, and like I said, normally it's a SIM replacement, and then we're shipping it back to you. So there's no credit involved, right? You just need to choose the shipping address that you want it to go to, and there you go. And put your RMA comments in there as you would, and add product as you would. Okay, and again, same process for adding product. So those are the 4 different ways to request RMAs. So we've gone from having the one standard kind of dysfunctional device, what we refer to as a warranty claim, to offering a sales option now. And if there's an investigative reasoning and or a repair. So certainly expanding our options and giving you guys more flexibility in terms of the RMA return process. So I'm just going to X out of that. That walks us through requesting an RMA. I'm going to come back to the hamburger here, and I'm just going to show you a couple of sections here that we have in our RMA section that helps you manage RMAs once they've been requested. So the first thing I'm going to click on is active RMAs. And this is really straightforward. It's going to populate automatically all of the RMAs in the process that are actively going through our process right now. In my opinion, the most useful piece of information in here is current status. Okay, this is what probably you're going to use this for. What is the status? Is it complete? Is it pending repair? Is it pending receipt? If it's pending receipt, we are waiting for devices to come from you/the end fleet. And then the other piece I think that might be of interest is, of course, under warranty and the section over here that talks about past inspection. Okay, that might be of interest to you guys as well. But normally, in my opinion, in my experience, the lion's share of what this is used for is to see the status of the RMAs that you've requested. Okay, now there's a couple of ways to search that you should consider as well. When you do have the ability, obviously, to search by specific RMA number here, but you can also drop down options. You can search by serial number, your reference filter, so whatever you've used as a reference. And if you happen to want to see completed RMAs, because they won't be listed here, right? These are active. So if you do want to see completed RMAs, you simply click on this and then click search. So that's a good way to kind of, sift through what you want to look for. A couple things to consider as well. If you find the RMA that you're interested in, and I'll just highlight one, you can always scroll to the bottom and view RMA details. You have to highlight what you want to look at and click on view RMA details, and it'll just pop up a more clearer view and more detail in terms of what that RMA is all about, what's going on with it. And then lastly in this section, I just wanted to point out the ability to export any of this to Excel. We love exporting data out to Excel and giving you guys the option to do that. You can certainly have that ability within this section as well. Okay? Now I'm going to pop back to the hamburger, and now I just want to look at RMA requests. So this is requests, and one would hope that nothing sits here too long. If it's sitting here too long, then there may be a problem, and you should probably reach out to your PAM for a bit of research into why it's sitting here, because we only want a request to be here for so long. We want it to move through the process, right? So these are just any warranty requests that have come up recently that will be it's just basically any requests that are in there waiting for you guys. You don't have the ability to find further detail. There's no options to filter. It's just any recent requests that have yet to go through, get through the next stage of the RMA process. So that's a very simple reference point for you guys. Now, I'm going to pop back to the home page really quickly because I want to show you guys a graph. I believe it's on now. You'll have to forgive me. It might be a what's new, coming new in the next update of RMAs. But we are, if it's not in here now, which it may not be, so my apologies, but what we are adding to this kind of graphical section of my admin is a new graph on types of RMAs, like the most common reasons for RMAs, which will be a great reference point, and you'll be able to see patterns forming. Is it always dysfunctional? Am I doing too many sales returns? It will give you a great idea in terms of what's kind of happening in regards to your RMAs. So it'll be a graph not unlike this, but it'll be in regards to types of RMAs, top 5 types of RMAs that you guys have submitted in the last period of time. So that will be coming soon onto our homepage of my admin. I think I spoke too soon. It's not available yet. It's coming soon. So my apologies for that. Okay. I just want to pop back into the user policy guide to finish up a little bit. I'm going to scroll down through the how-to stuff because we've already walked through that live. And I want to end at replacing an RMA device. So really big news here, really big news, and a fantastic new update to our RMA process is that as of June 17th, Geotab is inserting a prepaid return shipping label with each replacement order. So once you get your RMA approved, you will also get a shipping label, a prepaid shipping label, to which you can affix to the box that the dysfunctional device or hardware is coming back to us. So makes your lives much easier, less expense for you and the end fleet. So I think that's just a wonderful addition to our RMA process. Now, in saying that, as we've discussed already, you guys can use your shelf stock to replace devices or hardware if you have shelf stock. That's absolutely doable. And then once you get the RMA number and once you get the return label, you can then just get that dysfunctional device in a box, nice sealed nicely, get the label on it, and ship it back to us. If you don't keep shelf stock, you don't want to keep shelf stock because you don't have to, the other process still applies. The older process, if you will, still applies in that you go through that RMA process we just discussed, we just walked through. Once you get your RMA number, you then can go in and place an order for a replacement device or devices. You must use the RMA number as the PO number, and that connects it back for us. So this is a replacement order for this particular RMA. Okay, that was the process we used for years prior to allowing folks to keep shelf stock. Okay, so the process is, just as a reminder, you use the RMA number as the PO number. You place the order for the replacement product that you need. You submit. We then ship out to the address that you've chosen. You then get the replacement device or hardware. And the idea was that you go to the vehicle once. You take that replacement, or the installer, or maybe it's the customer themselves, takes the replacement. When they receive it, the shipment, they take the replacement product out to the vehicle with the dysfunctional hardware. They do the replacement, uninstall the hardware, the Go device, let's just say, install the replacement device. And then what they can do is take that dysfunctional device, put it in the packaging that the return or the replacement device came in, seal it back up, affix the return prepaid label, and then ship it back to us. Okay, so that process is still applicable. That should be nothing new. That was our legacy process for a long time until we allowed folks to use shelf stock. So that is still there. Now, just as a reminder, in terms of return centers, again, for the Canadian folks, you return to our Oakville office. For the US folks, you return to Vegas offices. There's many links built into this particular document which take you to, really interesting information. You can click on that for the addresses if you so choose. And that is essentially the end of my session, my walkthrough on the RMA process, and I would love to open it up to any questions that may have come up along the way. Ben?
Great. Thank you so much, Heather. We did have a question come through here. Is there a way to find out what was wrong or what happened to the devices when they were tested? We have customers who occasionally want to know what happened to the device.
So that is a good question, and yes, you can. And I believe, let me just back it up to the My Admin section here. And if I go to RMAs, and I go to active RMAs, let's just let this load for a minute. It looks like we don't yet list that in the RMA. That's a good question. We keep track of that information, and it could be as easy as reaching out to your PAM to say, I put this RMA, I had this device or these devices that failed, the RMA went through, can you provide me detail on what was wrong with them? Doesn't seem to be apparent in this particular section. I think there might be upcoming functionality where it'll be built right into the report itself. Don't hold me to that because I know there's quite a few changes happening, but that may or may not be one of them. But I know you can reach out to your PAM for further information because we do keep track of that information, what failed within the hardware itself. So the short answer is yes. At the moment, it's probably best to reach out to your PAM.
And just to add on to something that you said just now and even at the beginning, just there's a lot of changes happening in my admin. There's a lot of changes that have happened. There's a lot of changes that will continue to happen. So just stay tuned for future webinars, future Tuesday talks. We'll be doing some walkthroughs of my admin and just keep you up to date on everything that's happening. Heather, thank you so much for joining us today and presenting on today's Tuesday talk.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks everyone for joining. We appreciate it, and I hope everyone has a great day.